All right, let's give this a shot. Um, my name is Monty. I'm a retired lawyer, active father, and as I discussed in the last video, my first video, since I've stopped practicing law, something that I've thought a lot about is sharing my knowledge and acquired knowledge about caring for babies, parenting, bringing a kid into the world, giving it a good start, trying to make sure it's as successful as possible. It's really one of the things that I've just thought, man, before I turn to anything else, it'd be nice to get the information out there and see what people want to do with it. I mean, I know I didn't. I talked about in the last video. I didn't know anything when my wife was pregnant with our son. And I'll just tell you that story real quickly again. I mean, I didn't know the first thing. I would have told you, if a baby's crying to give it a bottle or something, feed it. And then if it was fed and it was still crying, I would have said, give it another bottle. I don't know, Um, and I know there's a lot of people that are in my shoes or in the shoes that I was in at the time. I know there's a lot of guys who may be very motivated to be good dads and become good dads, and they just don't know where to begin, and they don't know who to listen to. And as I'll say again in a minute, I mean, don't listen to me necessarily at all. It's your life and it's your kid and it's your responsibility and it's your choices. But hopefully, my input and my information will contribute to a better understanding of what can be done in the 21st century when it comes to parenting. And hopefully it benefits a lot of people. And if nothing else, it gives you a start towards, really educating yourself on what it is to take care of a baby and what they need and how to get through the first 3 months and the first year and beyond successfully. I called this series Daddy Boot Camp. This is part 1, why you should listen to me in the first place. And, that's the subtitle. The title is Kiss the Child. And the reason for that is, I guess, threefold. It's, but really mostly, I mean, we'll talk more about it. It's about setting the tone for everything else that follows because, everybody's different. Your personality may not, you may not be the type to express affection that way necessarily, but, maybe it comes naturally to you. But if it doesn't, plant a kiss on the child anyway, I'd say. Do whatever you need to do to bring yourself around to the idea because, and I think as I'll share as we go on, it makes a dramatic difference in their welfare and their well-being and their sense of security being thrust into this new world. Your child needs it. Ask any parent, I think they'll tell you, but your kid needs it. It's a great way to communicate with them before they have words. Because even on a nonverbal, emotional level, they'll quickly get the sense over time that, whoever this person is, and I'll come to learn it's my daddy or my baba or my papa or whatever he or she calls you, but they'll know you like them a lot. They'll feel very good and secure in knowing that, boy, this guy likes me a lot. So it's a great way to communicate that before they even have any words at all and understand at all what you're talking about. And like I said, it sets the tone for everything else. So, this is Daddy Boot Camp. I've outlined a series of 10 videos on the subject that I'm going to try to do. I'll tell you what they are in a second, but you know, I'll just say that, you know, the other working title for these videos was "You Are the Father." One, because I thought it was kind of funny, uh, you know, but two, because that's the reality, right? I mean, my target audience is dads who are motivated to become and be the best dads they can be. And whether you're, you know, whatever walk of life you're in, you know, you might be head of your household, you may be co-pilot, you may be chief lieutenant, you know, like I was, or at least I considered myself, you know, and especially in the beginning and, you know, during the pregnancy and afterward, it's, you know, she's the boss, but I was the chief lieutenant, and it was my job to, you know, support her and the mission as best I could. But, you know, whatever role you fashion for yourself, it won't change that no matter who you are, you're going to be the fathers of this child. You're going to be the male figure in his or her life. And you must lead, you know, whether from the front or the rear or the middle, you must lead. I think I've got some answers for you, and I'm going to try to give them to you guys. There's two rules at the outset. Number one, I want to emphasize that the people I'm talking most to are people like my former self, or maybe a good buddy that is having their first kid, or maybe like the kid brother of your good buddy who's kind of like a little brother to you too. You know, somebody like that. And if they were to come to me and ask me for advice, we had all the time in the world to talk about it. You know, these are kind of the things I'd say. So that's who I'm talking to. And I'll, you know, most of everything will be directed to dads. You know, obviously what I have to say will bear on the woman in your life, but that's going to be the approach. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is do not do anything that I tell you to do because I told you to do it, and, you know, Monty told me to do it, and that's all I know. I don't think anything that I say, especially in context, but, you know, even, you know, absolutely, it's not going to be controversial or, you know, dangerous or reckless. But, you know, the first days, weeks, and months are a precious time. They're a delicate time. It's incumbent on you to learn as much as you can. So watch all the videos, you know, don't just, maybe it begins with me for some people. But I think that's how I would look at it too, is that it's a starting point. It's not, you know, the end game, and it's not just a complete education unto itself. You know, most of what I'm going to say is going to be to listen to the healthcare professionals and providers, and, you know, take all the classes, and, you know, why you should listen to me in the first place. Part of what I'm going to get to is, you know, I'll tell you everything that I did, how I acquired the knowledge that I did. And you ought to do the same. You know, I mean, if I can short circuit some of that or give you a roadmap that helps people, that helps guys, you know, understand the lay of the land, then great. But the second and more important rule is essentially, you know, you can't blame me for anything, and you got to do your own research and decide things for yourself. It's your life and your baby. I don't know anything about your life or your baby. You know, with a friend, close personal friend or whatnot, you know, I could follow up with them. There'd be all the time in the world to talk. I'd be getting feedback and in the conversation from them. And I don't have that with anybody at home or wherever you're watching this. So please do your own research and, you know, take ownership of your life and your baby's life and the experience. I call this the grand adventure for people. And I think if you're like-minded or just, you know, motivated dad, you know, first-time dad, maybe even second-time dad, not that we all can't learn things on the third and fourth and fifth kid even, but you know, if you're that kind of person, then I think you're going to benefit. And thank you for giving me your time. So my story is, you know, I was a guy who didn't know anything about babies and how to take care of them. Woke up one day and realized that that was the case, and that this baby was coming, whether I was going to be ready or not. So the first thing I did, and this is kind of getting down to brass tacks, the first thing I did, and I think it was probably the most important thing that I could have done in hindsight, is that I blocked off an entire afternoon, 4 hours, when I was at the office. I think maybe it was a Friday afternoon or something. And I got on Amazon and I ran all the intelligent searches I could think of, and I homed in on, you know, the baby care books, and I spent, I you know, this was some time ago, but I honestly, probably 3 hours. I mean, I blocked off 4 hours, and at some point I felt like I'd exhausted the research, but, you know, damn near 3 hours I sat there and just read through reviews and read comments from other people about all these books, because I'd been generally aware that, you know, there's a, I don't know if cottage industry is the right word, but there's an industry of, you know, a lot of books, a lot of literature, a lot of voices, a lot of opinions about this stuff, some at odds with each other, and sometimes people don't know how to make sense of it. So I wanted to just really kind of try to get a sense of, you know, who was making the most sense and who were the people who were writing the more intelligent, thoughtful comments or reviews. You know, what were they saying and which authors were they recommending? I spent a lot of time doing that, and it paid off big time. So let me just tell you, I mean, these are the books that I read. I mean, it's important that I share how I found it, because it, you know, I quickly dismissed anybody that was just like a one-line review, or, you know, oh, this sucks. You know, well, that doesn't tell you anything. But, you know, if you read enough of them, you can kind of separate the wheat from the chaff. And there were 3 books in particular that kind of formed the core of the books that my wife and I read. And you may be familiar with them, but if not, you'll become familiar with them. First one is called Baby Wise: On Becoming Baby Wise, Giving Your Infant the Gift of Nighttime Sleep, by Gary Ezzo, Ezzo, and Robert Bucknam, MD. This edition was what, the 2015, I think, edition. They might have new editions out by now. This is the 2012, the 5th edition is what we read. You know, this is Baby Wise is you know, it has its naysayers. It's maybe the most polarizing, if that's the right word, of the 3 books that form the core of the 7 or 8 books that I read, and I'll just touch on each of them. But if you look up Baby Wise online, there's a lot of folks who, you know, eschewed it, or, you know, went the other way, or, you know, had some criticisms about it. My, you know, candid, I guess, thought about all that is that, you know, it's a little rough around the edges, but I think the core concepts and like central messages in it are right. And I'll explain why, you know, as we go on. The second book was Healthy Sleep Habits, Happy Child, by Mark Weisbluth, MD. And this book was, I mean, all 3 of them were really important. I'll just tell you, Mark Weisbluth, MD, has been a pediatrician since 1973. I'm reading from the back of the book. A leading researcher on sleep in children, he founded the original Sleep Disorders Center at Children's Memorial Hospital, now the Ann and Robert H. Lurie Children's Hospital of Chicago, and is a professor of clinical pediatrics, emeritus at the Northwestern University Feinberg School of Medicine. The guy's a genius. It's a very long and somewhat dense book. With all love and respect and appreciation for Dr. Weisbluth, I'm sure he had editors, but I don't know. I mean, I don't think he could afford me anyway. But it's not an easy read, but the man is a genius. He's a pediatrician who has not just studied children for 50 years, but sleep in babies and children. And he writes himself that he's a grandfather now, maybe great-grandfather, and successive generations of babies and kids in his family. They've all done a pretty good job because he is just the the standard bearer for the importance of sleep. It's important for all of us, well beyond what we, the respect or, that we give it today, but especially for kids. So, we'll talk more about that. Third book, Secrets of the Baby Whisperer by Tracy Hogg, who is a registered nurse, I believe, RN and midwife in England. So she's this charming, British lady. She calls you, I don't know, these affectionate names that she calls the reader. It's an easier read, and it's less clinically grounded, I suppose, than Dr. Weisbluth's book, but very, very, very good. And especially the things that Ms. Hogg talks about in the way of communicating with your baby and the verbal and nonverbal cues that they give that are not intuitive, but accurately reflect, signals that the babies try to send you about, I'm tired, I'm gassy, I'm whatever. Just spot on, and it's incredible. Not all of them applied to Cyrus, and I think not all of them are going to apply to any one baby, but it was amazing how many of them did, and I wouldn't have known the first thing. I mean, I think one of them, for being tired and needing a nap, was, pulling on the ears. I'll go over my notes, and we'll talk about that in the programs to come, but something like that. So this was really great. Fourth, fifth, and sixth books were What to Expect When You're Expecting. Going to be very familiar to many of you. Good book. The next book is What to Expect the First Year. And then we also read What to Expect the Second Year, months 12 to 24. Those books are they're more mainstream. They're trying to, it's not a criticism. I just think they're trying to appeal to a wide audience, but the information for the most part is very good. And you're going to be, I think, served well if you take the time to read those books. There was a book that we got on from a crash course on dads to be. I think this was a book that was provided in one of the classes that my wife and I took, or that I took. So I read that one. What to Do When Your Child Gets Sick. It's a State of California, First Five California book. Then there's Advice for New Parents, First Five California. Read that. We watched, when my wife was pregnant, we would watch videos every week over breakfast, I think on Saturdays or something, that talked about the progress of the pregnancy and where the baby was at. We would do that together. We attended 7 classes. I mean, I'll tick them off for you: baby care basics, prepared childbirth, CPR and first aid, baby saver, breastfeeding, how to raise a healthy infant, and then there was a daddy boot camp course that I took on my own. It's called Daddy Boot Camp. So those are all the classes. The things I didn't necessarily do, rely on oral tradition or anecdotes, or just tradition in general, the way that maybe it's always been done in the family, your family, my family. It doesn't mean I didn't ask anybody, and it doesn't mean I didn't listen to what people said, because I did. I was always interested in people's views, but I'm glad that I didn't rely just on those earthy, anecdotal bits of wisdom that have been passed down from generation to generation. There is wisdom in a lot of that, but it's no substitute at all, and it's in my opinion a markedly inferior way of approaching your baby's life, to just rely on that. That might be if it's like a food pyramid, I think that's like maybe at the very top, where it's the last thing you do is just, I mean, continuously, by the way, on an ongoing basis, you talk to people, you get people's opinion. I'm always looking to hear what, people have to say about these kinds of subjects. I mean, some time ago, there was a friend of ours who, we were talking about omega-3 fatty acids and wild-caught fish, for example, and I was talking about, Alaskan sockeye salmon, and then, this couple told us about steelhead trout and how it actually has higher levels of omega-3s, and I learned something new. So, I'm always looking to learn something new. And by the way, on top of all this other education, I mean, both during the pregnancy and afterwards, for a long time, I would, anytime I'm in a, juice smoothie place or something, and they got copies of Orange County Parenting Magazine just on the racks to take for free, I'd always pick those up, read through them. I'm running the same internet search as everyone else is, constantly, maybe not as much as the kid has gotten older. But I've done all these things to inform myself. It's really paid off. I'm not here to just brag or humble brag or, talk about my kid in particular. But I think, you want to know why I have something valuable to say, I can tell you that my kid is, he slept, he was born relatively healthy. We had a couple early scares in the NICU, but they didn't amount to much, and he was clean bill of health on the way out. We breastfed successfully. He slept through the night right around 3 months, maybe before 3 months, and we got notes, I can tell you exactly when it was. Every year, his growth numbers, they've always been pretty high as far back as we could track them. I mean, when a baby's young, they talk about length, they don't talk about height, and, they don't really lay still anyway, so it's hard to get a read. But, as he's gotten older, it's been like, 95th percentile, 97th percentile. For his 6th birthday, he was in the 98th percentile for height. And the doctors told us that he's, that amounts to something like 6'5" tall. Let me tell you something. I am 5'7" barefoot. My wife is 5'2", probably, maybe on the dot. And, you know, height isn't everything, but we all want our kids to grow to their full potential and just grow healthy and strong and, you know, tall as can be. I you know, neither of us have overwhelming genes for that kind of stature. So that's one thing. His weight has always been pretty high, uh, but, you know, not like, I don't know, not necessarily 90th percentile. And in fact, that for his 6th birthday, we checked and his BMI was 50%. So he's 98th percentile in height, 50th percentile BMI. I'm not a doctor, but that seems, you know, pretty good. His head circumference is always good. He can read at 6 years old. And I want to be clear. I mean, when I say that he can read, I mean, when my son was 4 years old, he was reading, and we would read Harry Potter at home, for example. And when he was 4 years old, you know, like 3/4 down a page as I'm reading, he would like point to a word, demonstrating to me that he was tracking what I was reading in Harry freaking Potter at 4 years old. He's learning Chinese Mandarin at school. He's learning a second language. His English is very good. I'm not worried about his reading or his English comprehension, but he's learning a second language, and a very difficult language at that. But he's doing it. And, you know, we've obviously facilitated that, but it's been not effortless, but seamless in a sense, you know? He rides bikes with his friends. He plays sports. He learns quickly. He's a joy and a wonder. He's easy to get along with. He's a good kid, you know, and so much of who he is today and who he's becoming, honestly, man, I'll trace back to those first 3 months, and the tone that we set from the outset. So what are these episodes going to look like? I will tell you. Part 2 is going to be what to expect when she's expecting. Part 3 is going to be about labor, delivery, and the immediate aftermath. Part 4 is going to be called the 4th trimester. And it's going to be an overview of what others have called the 4th trimester, because it's not a phrase or a term that I've coined. But it's an incredibly powerful one, because you need to understand that the first 3 months after a kid is born are kind of different than everything else that follows, and what you do then can have a downstream impact, you know, for months and years to come. Part 5 is going to be beyond the overview of the 4th trimester. It's going to be about specifically nutrition and breastfeeding in the 4th trimester. Part 6 is going to be the 4th trimester and sleeping through the night. Part 7 is going to be about the 4th trimester and communications, troubleshooting your baby. A lot of useful things I can share with you guys. I think it's worthwhile. Part 8 is going to be about food and nutrition beyond the 4th trimester. Part 9 is going to be about sleep beyond the 4th trimester. And then part 10 I've just called, you know, First 5 California, because it's just parting thoughts about everything that'll come your way, you know, after the first year, after the 4th trimester, after the first 3 months, actually. And it's obviously a play on, you know, the state of California's program. They call it First 5 California. And it's a good one, you know, and I'll tell you what, they're right. You know, First 5 California, they say, talk, read, sing. Talk, read, sing. Talk to your kid, talk to your baby from day one. read to your baby, you know, nearly from day one. Sing to your baby, definitely from day one if you want. Um, and, you know, kiss the child. Kiss the child. So thanks for listening. I'll try to get the next episode out as quickly as I can. And I'm looking forward to sharing with you everything that I've learned. Take care and see you next time.